In a quiet rural haven, a fierce battle unfolds over the sanctity of private land. A homeowner, steadfast in their independence, faces off against a powerful homeowners association, HOA, wielding fabricated environmental claims to assert control. What begins as a routine morning, with coffee on the porch and mist rolling off the treetops, spirals into a saga of trespassing, intimidation, and retaliation. Armed with forged reports and unchecked authority, the HOA's representatives invade the homeowner's property, sparking a conflict that escalates from heated words to legal warfare. Through cunning resistance, irrefutable evidence, and unexpected community support, the homeowner exposes the HOA's overreach, unraveling a web of deceit that threatens not just their land but the entire neighborhood's freedom. This gripping narrative explores themes of property rights, bureaucratic abuse, and the unyielding spirit of defiance in the face of tyranny. Property rights and trespassing in the narrative. The first major topic in the transcript revolves around the narrator's fierce assertion of their property rights and the confrontation with representatives from a homeowners association, HOA, who trespass on their land. This theme sets the stage for the entire conflict, highlighting the tension between individual autonomy and bureaucratic overreach. The narrator's unwavering stance on their private property rights underscores a fundamental belief in personal sovereignty, while the HOA's actions represent an attempt to encroach upon that freedom through unauthorized entry and fabricated authority. The story begins with the narrator, a homeowner living on land explicitly outside the HOA's jurisdiction, noticing an unfamiliar SUV marked with HOA insignia pulling into their driveway. Two representatives, dressed in official-looking attire, step onto the property without permission, ignoring a clearly posted sign that declares it private land, unaffiliated with the HOA. This sign, hand-carved by the narrator, serves as both a literal and symbolic boundary, marking the land as their own and warning against intrusion. The representative's decision to bypass this marker and begin surveying the narrator's garden beds is a direct violation of property law, setting the tone for the escalating dispute. The narrator's response is immediate and resolute. They confront the intruders, questioning their presence and asserting that the land was purchased 6 years prior, with boundary markers legally filed with the county. This establishes the narrator's legal standing and their deep knowledge of their property rights. The confrontation is not just about physical trespass but also about the principle of autonomy. The narrator's blunt dismissal of the HOA's authority. "This ain't HOA land. This is my land," is a declaration of independence, rooted in the legal and moral certainty that their property is beyond the HOA's control. The HOA representatives, however, attempt to justify their presence with vague references to a supposed buffer zone and environmental concerns, citing an obscure statute that the narrator quickly debunks. This exchange highlights the HOA's tactic of using bureaucratic jargon to intimidate, assuming the homeowner might not challenge their authority. The narrator's refusal to accept their envelope of official-looking documents and their threat to file a trespassing report further emphasize their commitment to defending their land. The presence of their dog, a loyal companion with more attitude than brains, adds a layer of territorial instinct to the scene, mirroring the narrator's protective stance. HOA overreach and intimidation in the narrative. The second major topic in the narrative centers on the homeowners associations, HOA, overreach and use of intimidation tactics to exert control over the narrator's private property, despite lacking legal jurisdiction. This theme underscores the HOA's reliance on bureaucratic manipulation and fear to enforce compliance, revealing a pattern of authoritarian behavior that extends beyond the narrator's land to the broader community. The HOA's overreach manifests when two representatives arrive unannounced, claiming authority to conduct an environmental safety and compliance investigation on the narrator's property. Their official appearance, polo shirts, khakis, clipboards, and ID lanyards, projects an air of legitimacy, but their cited Green Pines HOA Environmental Safety and Compliance Task Force is later exposed as a fabricated entity designed to intimidate. By alleging hazardous chemical levels, supported by a dubious report, the HOA attempts to pressure the narrator into vacating their land for a supposed decontamination process. This claim is baseless, as the narrator's land is not under HOA control. a fact confirmed by county records showing clear boundary markers predating the HOA's establishment. The intimidation escalates with the HOA's persistence despite the narrator's resistance. The representatives quote an obscure statute, HOA Statute 8.63b, claiming a right to scan a 100-foot buffer zone around the HOA's perimeter, which the narrator refutes by verifying their property lies outside this zone. The delivery of a formal notice demanding the narrator vacate within 24 hours, coupled with threats of a decontamination crew, is a blatant attempt to bully through fear of disruption and loss of home. The envelope left on the porch, filled with fake chemical indicators and no credible agency backing, is a calculated move to overwhelm the narrator with pseudo-legal threats. This overreach is not an isolated incident but part of a broader HOA strategy to dominate nonconformists. The narrative later reveals the HOA president's history of targeting residents for minor infractions, like unapproved decks or untimely decorations, showing a pattern of control through harassment. The narrator's defiance, refusing the envelope, threatening legal action, and later exposing the fraud, challenges this power dynamic. By obtaining a certified soil analysis that debunks the HOA's claims, the narrator turns their intimidation tactics into evidence of fraud. The theme of HOA overreach and intimidation highlights the dangers of unchecked authority. It portrays the HOA as a quasi-corporate entity using fear and deception to encroach on individual rights, setting the stage for the narrator's legal and communal resistance. This struggle reflects a broader fight against bureaucratic tyranny, resonating with anyone who has faced similar overreach. Environmental fraud allegations in the narrative. The third major topic in the narrative focuses on the homeowners associations, HOA, use of fabricated environmental fraud allegations to pressure the narrator into surrendering control of their private property. This theme highlights the HOA's deceptive tactics, using pseudoscientific claims to justify trespassing and intimidate the narrator, only for their scheme to be exposed through rigorous evidence. The HOA's strategy begins when two representatives arrive, claiming that hazardous chemical levels on the narrator's property exceed acceptable thresholds, as reported by their so-called Environmental Safety and Compliance Task Force. They assert the need for soil samples and runoff collection, presenting their actions as a routine investigation. However, the narrator immediately recognizes the falsehood, noting their land is outside HOA jurisdiction, as confirmed by county records. The representatives leave an envelope containing a report with official-looking HOA letterhead, printed maps, and a list of alleged chemical indicators detected near the narrator's compost pile. The document lacks credible agency names, lab signatures, or legal notices, resembling a high schooler's science fair report stapled to a threat, exposing its fraudulent nature. The narrator counters this deception by enlisting an independent environmental consultant, a former state employee with decades of experience. This expert conducts a thorough soil analysis, collecting samples from multiple points on the property, including the compost bin and tomato beds. The resulting state-certified lab report, delivered within 3 days, confirms no chemical contamination, no abnormal compounds, and no hazardous runoff, just healthy, slightly acidic soil ideal for blueberries. This evidence directly debunks the HOA's claims, revealing their environmental allegations as a deliberate fabrication designed to coerce the narrator into compliance or eviction. The fraudulent report serves as a tool of intimidation, leveraging the fear of environmental violations to justify the HOA's unauthorized presence and demands. By claiming the narrator's land poses a community risk, the HOA attempts to extend its authority beyond its legal boundaries, a tactic later revealed to target other nonconformist residents. The narrator's proactive response, securing certified evidence and preserving it alongside property records, transforms the HOA's deception into a cornerstone of their legal defense. This theme of environmental fraud underscores the HOA's willingness to manipulate scientific and legal processes for control. It exposes their reliance on fear rather than fact, assuming the narrator would not challenge their claims. Confrontation and escalation in the narrative. The fourth major topic in the narrative centers on the escalating confrontations between the narrator and the homeowners association, HOA, marked by verbal disputes, threats, and a deepening power struggle. This theme illustrates the narrator's steadfast defiance against the HOA's attempts to encroach on their private property, highlighting how initial tensions spiral into a broader conflict fueled by the HOA's persistence and the narrator's refusal to yield. The confrontation begins when two HOA representatives trespass on the narrator's land, claiming to investigate alleged environmental hazards. The narrator, sipping coffee on their porch, immediately challenges their presence, pointing out the property's independence from HOA jurisdiction, as evidenced by county records and a hand-carved "No Trespassing" sign. Their sharp retort, "You already invaded, genius," and demand that the representatives leave underscore their resolve to protect their rights. The HOA's refusal to back down, citing a dubious statute and delivering a formal notice to vacate within 24 hours, heightens the tension, turning a routine encounter into a direct challenge to the narrator's autonomy. The escalation continues as the narrator responds with increasing assertiveness. They reject the HOA's envelope of fake documents and threaten to file a trespassing report, signaling their readiness to counter legally. The HOA's persistence, returning days later with renewed demands and parking on the road to avoid immediate trespass, pushes the conflict further. The narrator's display of an unloaded shotgun during one encounter, described as a promise of resistance rather than a threat, marks a significant escalation, emphasizing their willingness to defend their land by any legal means necessary. This back and forth is not just about physical boundaries but a clash of principles. The narrator's commitment to individual freedom versus the HOA's authoritarian tactics. The HOA's refusal to acknowledge the narrator's legal standing, coupled with their fabricated environmental claims, fuels the narrator's determination, leading to actions like installing security cameras and new signs to deter further intrusions. These confrontations set the stage for the narrative's later legal battles, as the narrator's evidence gathering and defiance expose the HOA's overreach. The theme of confrontation and escalation highlights the emotional and strategic intensity of defending one's rights against a bullying entity. It portrays the narrator as a resolute figure, transforming initial verbal sparring into a calculated resistance that challenges the HOA's authority, paving the way for broader community pushback and legal accountability. Retaliatory actions. The fifth major topic in the narrative focuses on the narrator's retaliatory actions against the Homeowners Association, HOA, specifically their bold decision to orchestrate the dumping of manure on the HOA president's property. This act of defiance represents a calculated escalation, shifting the narrator from a defensive stance to an offensive one, using a provocative gesture to counter the HOA's relentless intimidation and fraudulent tactics. The retaliation stems from the HOA's aggressive overreach, including trespassing, fake environmental claims, and the illegal dumping of construction debris near the narrator's property. After discovering a garbage truck unloading waste close to their lot line, orchestrated by the HOA president, the narrator decides to strike back. They enlist a friend, a cattle rancher with a surplus of manure, to provide a truckload of fermented cow manure. Under the cover of night, the narrator drives to the HOA president's meticulously maintained residence, identifiable by its ostentatious brick facade and manicured lawn. With precision, they unleash a tidal wave of manure onto the property, coating the flower beds and pavers in a deliberate act of sabotage. This act is both symbolic and practical, mirroring the HOA's own tactic of using environmental disruption as a weapon while delivering a humiliating blow to the president's pristine image. The manure dump is not a random act of vengeance but a strategic response to the HOA's escalating provocations, particularly the illegal garbage dump that threatened the narrator's land and a nearby watershed. By targeting the president's property, the narrator flips the script, using the HOA's own underhanded methods against them. The act is executed covertly, with the narrator ensuring no witnesses and returning the truck to their friend's farm, maintaining plausible deniability. The next morning, a news alert about organic waste dumped on the HOA president's property confirms the action's impact, sparking public attention and further exposing the president's misconduct. This theme of retaliatory actions underscores the narrator's refusal to remain a passive victim. It highlights their resourcefulness and willingness to push boundaries within the law's gray areas to assert their autonomy. The manure incident not only disrupts the HOA president's authority but also galvanizes the narrator's resolve, setting the stage for legal and communal efforts to dismantle the HOA's oppressive regime. It's a vivid illustration of fighting fire with fire, using bold retaliation to challenge an unjust power structure. Illegal dumping incident in the narrative. The sixth major topic in the narrative centers on the illegal dumping incident orchestrated by the Homeowners Association, HOA, president, where a garbage truck unloads construction debris and waste near the narrator's property. This act represents a deliberate escalation of the HOA's campaign to harass and intimidate the narrator, using environmental disruption as a weapon to pressure them into submission, while also exposing the HOA's willingness to break the law to assert control. The incident unfolds when the narrator hears a diesel engine near their property's southern edge, close to the HOA's buffer zone. Investigating, they discover a massive, unmarked garbage truck dumping a mix of construction debris, yard waste, cardboard, drywall, and even broken toilets just 30 feet from their lot line. This calculated placement, while technically off the narrator's property, threatens a protected watershed and violates environmental regulations. The narrator quickly records the scene, capturing the truck's Oregon license plate and confronting the driver, who claims the area is an HOA green belt authorized for cleanup, instructed by a woman later linked to the HOA president. The narrator's retort about felony-level environmental damage rattles the driver, who hastily retreats, leaving half the load behind. This illegal dumping is a direct retaliation to the narrator's defiance of the HOA's trespassing and fraudulent environmental claims. It's a strategic move to create a nuisance, potentially frame the narrator for violations, or force compliance through disruption. The narrator's swift action, filming the incident and reporting it to the sheriff's office and the county's environmental quality department, turns the HOA's tactic into evidence against them. The deputy's revelation that this isn't the first illegal dumping incident near the HOA suggests a broader pattern of organized misconduct, implicating the HOA president further. The theme of the illegal dumping incident highlights the HOA's desperation to maintain control through unethical means. It underscores their readiness to endanger the environment and break laws to target nonconformists like the narrator. The narrator's quick documentation and reporting not only neutralize the immediate threat but also bolster their legal case, exposing the HOA's criminal behavior. This incident becomes a pivotal moment, shifting the narrative toward accountability, as the driver's later testimony confirms the HOA president's involvement, paving the way for her arrest and the unraveling of her authority. Legal action and evidence in the narrative. The seventh major topic in the narrative focuses on the narrator's strategic use of legal action and meticulously gathered evidence to counter the Homeowners Association's HOA, fraudulent claims, and aggressive tactics. This theme underscores the narrator's proactive approach in building a robust defense, transforming the HOA's deceptive actions into a legal weapon against them, and setting the foundation for both criminal and civil repercussions. From the outset, the narrator recognizes the need to substantiate their claim to their property and refute the HOA's baseless environmental allegations. After the HOA representatives trespass and present a fabricated report alleging hazardous chemical levels, the narrator enlists an independent environmental consultant to conduct a comprehensive soil analysis. The resulting state-certified lab report, which finds no contamination and confirms the soil's suitability for agriculture, directly debunks the HOA's claims. This document becomes a cornerstone of the narrator's evidence, proving the HOA's accusations were fraudulent. The narrator further strengthens their position by pulling county parcel records, verifying their property's boundaries and its independence from HOA jurisdiction, predating the HOA by nearly 2 decades. They also install security cameras and motion-detecting floodlights to document any further intrusions, capturing critical footage of subsequent confrontations, including the HOA president's violation of a restraining order. These recordings, combined with the soil analysis and property records, form an airtight collection of evidence. When the HOA escalates by orchestrating an illegal dump near the narrator's property, the narrator records the incident, including the truck's license plate, and reports it to the sheriff's office and environmental authorities. This action not only neutralizes the HOA's attempt to frame them but also leads to the driver's testimony, implicating the HOA president. The narrator's attorney leverages this evidence in a civil suit, alleging harassment, trespass, emotional distress, property damage, and fraud, while the criminal case against the HOA president and her husband includes charges of battery, aggravated trespassing, and violating a court order. This theme of legal action and evidence highlights the narrator's resourcefulness and determination to fight through legitimate channels. By compiling certified documents, video footage, and witness statements, the narrator turns the HOA's tactics against them, exposing their misconduct and ensuring accountability. This strategic evidence gathering not only protects the narrator's property but also galvanizes community resistance, paving the way for the HOA's downfall and reinforcing the power of truth in confronting bureaucratic overreach. Community backlash. Community backlash against the Homeowners Association, HOA, as other residents rally against its oppressive tactics, inspired by the narrator's defiance. This theme illustrates how the narrator's fight against the HOA's overreach exposes a broader pattern of harassment, galvanizing the community to challenge and ultimately dismantle the HOA's authoritarian control. The narrator's conflict with the HOA, marked by trespassing, fraudulent environmental claims, and illegal dumping, initially seems isolated. However, as the narrator's legal battle gains traction, it reveals the HOA's systemic abuse. During the discovery phase of the narrator's civil suit, 3 other residents come forward with their own grievances. One was fined for building a county-permitted deck without HOA approval. Another faced harassment for early Halloween decorations, and an elderly woman was cited for lawn neglect while her husband underwent chemotherapy. These stories expose the HOA president's pattern of targeting nonconformists with petty, unjust regulations, echoing the narrator's experience. This shared frustration sparks a broader community response. Residents, previously silenced by fear, begin attending HOA meetings, voicing their discontent. The narrative describes a mix of quiet ones, angry ones, and those too afraid to speak when the HOA president held sway, indicating a shift from compliance to resistance. The narrator's evidence, security footage, certified soil tests, and property records, along with the garbage truck driver's testimony implicating the HOA president, empowers residents to see the HOA's actions as not just personal vendettas but systemic overreach. The backlash culminates in a transformative HOA board election, where no incumbent retains their seat. A new board, comprising younger residents, retired military, and fed-up locals, takes over, rejecting the old regime's power trips. Their first acts include a public apology to the narrator and others affected, the dissolution of the fraudulent Environmental Task Force, and an audit of discretionary spending, signaling a community-driven demand for transparency and fairness. This theme of community backlash underscores the power of collective action against tyranny. The narrator's fight becomes a catalyst, exposing the HOA's abuses and inspiring residents to reclaim their agency. It transforms the neighborhood from one stifled by fear into one embracing cooperation, as seen in later gestures like neighbors offering eggs, jam, and firewood. The backlash not only vindicates the narrator, but also redefines the community, prioritizing mutual respect over bureaucratic control. Criminal and civil consequences. The criminal and civil consequences faced by the HOA president and her husband, resulting from their aggressive actions against the narrator. This theme highlights the legal accountability that follows their overreach, driven by the narrator's irrefutable evidence and the community's growing resistance, marking a decisive victory against the HOA's authoritarian tactics. The criminal consequences stem from a physical altercation when the HOA president and her husband storm onto the narrator's property, ignoring a restraining order and new "no trespassing" signs. Their confrontation escalates to assault, with the narrator shoved into a doorframe, causing injury. Security footage captures the incident in high definition, showing the president's verbal tirade and her husband's aggressive posture. This evidence, combined with the violation of a court-issued protective order, leads to their arrest for battery, aggravated trespassing, and breaching the restraining order. The district attorney, recognizing the severity of the coordinated assault post-restraint violation, elevates the charges to felony status, carrying a potential 8-year sentence. The judge's review of the footage during the arraignment solidifies the case. With the president's own words, shrieking about filthy rednecks, undermining her defense. Simultaneously, the narrator pursues a civil suit, alleging harassment, trespass, emotional distress, property damage, and attempted fraud tied to the HOA's fabricated environmental report. The narrator's attorney uncovers the HOA's misuse of discretionary funds for projects like the fraudulent Environmental Task Force, further implicating the president. The garbage truck driver's testimony, identifying the president as the one who paid for illegal dumping, adds weight to the civil claims. The suit exposes a pattern of HOA abuse as other residents' grievances surface, amplifying the case's impact. Despite a high-priced attorney, the president and her husband face overwhelming evidence, leading them to accept a plea deal: 4 years probation, mandatory community service, and substantial restitution. The civil suit delivers further consequences, with a settlement covering the narrator's cleanup costs, legal fees, and more. The HOA board, implicated in enabling the president's actions, faces internal upheaval, with an audit and new leadership dismantling its oppressive structure. This theme underscores the power of evidence-driven legal action in holding bullies accountable. The consequences dismantle the HOA president's authority, vindicate the narrator, and catalyze community reform, proving that justice can prevail when deception and aggression are met with unwavering resolve. Restoration and community change centers on the restoration of the narrator's property and the transformative changes within the community following the defeat of the homeowners associations. HOA, oppressive regime. This theme highlights the return of peace to the narrator's land and the neighborhood's shift toward cooperation and fairness, driven by collective action and the narrator's victory over the HOA's overreach. After the legal battles, the narrator's property regains its tranquility. The land, once trampled by HOA trespassers and marred by illegal dumping, is restored to its natural state, with the lawn regrowing and the air carrying the scent of pine and grill smoke. The narrator uses part of the civil suit settlement to build a tool shed, reinforce the property's perimeter, and repair a rotting creekside dock, symbolizing a reclaiming of their space. A new sign, declaring "No drama, private land protected by law and a good dog," marks the property's independence, sealed humorously by the narrator's dog marking the post. This restoration reflects not just physical recovery, but the narrator's emotional and psychological reclaiming of their sanctuary. Free from HOA harassment, the community undergoes a parallel transformation. The HOA president's arrest and the exposure of her fraudulent tactics spark a revolt, with residents electing a new board of younger, pragmatic individuals, including retired military and longtime locals. This board publicly apologizes to the narrator and others, abolishes the fraudulent Environmental Task Force, and audits past spending, dismantling the old regime's oppressive structures. The neighborhood shifts from a climate of fear and fines to one of cooperation, evidenced by cookouts, shared gardening, and neighbors offering eggs, jam, and firewood. The new HOA president's visit with a peace offering, a letter and an offer for an official sign affirming the narrator's independence, signals a commitment to respect individual rights. This theme of restoration and community change illustrates the ripple effect of standing against tyranny. The narrator's fight not only secures their land but also liberates the community from bureaucratic control, fostering a culture of mutual support. The cookout hosted by the narrator, attended by allies and new board members, and the fleeting acknowledgement from the humbled former HOA president, underscore a healed community, united by respect for boundaries and a shared rejection of past injustices.